Confucius was a Chinese teacher and philosopher whose philosophy strongly influenced Chinese life and culture for over 2,000 years. He had this to say about patience. Do not be desirous of having things done quickly. Do not look at small advantages. Desire to have things done quickly prevents their being done thoroughly. Looking at small advantages prevents great affairs from being accomplished. I have this quote of the ancient Chinese teacher and philosopher Confucius pasted above my typewriter as a gentle daily reminder to not do anything that will prevent great affairs from being accomplished. It seems to me that we have a great deal to learn from our nature about how we hinder our greatness. Yet it is our nature that we often ignore in favor of what our mind tells us is the way things ought to be. Patience is a key ingredient in the process of the natural world and in our personal world. For instance, if I scrape my arm or break a bone, the healing process proceeds precisely at its own pace, independent of any opinion I might have about it. That is the natural world at work. My desire to have it fixed quickly is of absolutely no consequence. If I imply that impatience of my personal world, I will prevent it from healing thoroughly, as Confucius advised over 25 centuries ago. Shakespeare's observation matches the wisdom of this ancient Chinese predecessor when Shakespeare wrote, "How poor are they that have not patience! What wound did ever heal but by degree?" When I was a child, I remember planting some radish seeds at springtime. When early summer arrived, I noticed green leafy shoots protruding above the ground, and I watched them grow a bit taller each day, and finally I couldn't stand it any longer, and I began to tug at those radish shoots, trying to get them to grow faster. I had not yet learned that nature reveals her secrets on her own time schedule. As I pulled at the tiny little leaves, they emerged from the ground sans radishes, and my childish impatience to have this thing done quickly prevented it from happening at all. Now, when I am asked if I am disappointed because one of my books did not appear on a bestseller list as my earlier books did, I think of this observation of the wise Chinese sage: great things have no fear of time. What a compliment it is to the genius of Confucius that his words are still being quoted and his knowledge still applied 2,500 years after his departure. I too write for those souls who have yet to materialize, and if that means sacrificing the small advantage of a position of prestige on a list somewhere today, my impatient ego may be puzzled, but I am content. Impatience breeds fear and stress and discouragement. Patience manifests in confidence, decisiveness, and a feeling of peaceful satisfaction. As you look at your own life, examine how frequently you demand an immediate indicator of success for yourself and others, and attempt instead to see the larger picture. When you are on purpose and see the larger picture, you are able to let go of an inclination to seek validation in the form of merit badges and immediate applause. Italian painter, sculptor, architect, and poet, this Renaissance artist, Michelangelo Buonarroti, is an outstanding figure in the history of the visual arts. Listen to these words he wrote in the 16th century. "The greater danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it." One of the more frequent criticisms I have received is that I offer far too much hope for people in dire circumstances and that this could be a dangerous thing. Despite this kind of fault-finding, I am still at a loss as to how having too much hope could be a dangerous thing. When people tell me of a medical diagnosis which implies no cure being possible, I encourage them to shift their aim to a completely opposite outcome. I talk frequently about the law which has allowed any miracle that has ever occurred since the inception of time to take place. I explain that this law has never been repealed and is still on the books. I cite cases of people who were told to go home and wait to die, who were given 6 months to live, and who freed themselves of their illnesses and their diagnoses. I receive mail every day from people who refuse to listen to the low aims and the low hopes that others have had for them, describing how grateful they were for a message of hope in difficult times. I believe that Michelangelo, who lived a few days shy of 89 years, still sculpting, painting, writing, and designing, in an age when 90 was about 60 years beyond normal life expectancy, was speaking to this idea of having very high hopes and aims in this famous quotation of his. The danger is not in false hope, rather it is in no hope or low hope, and consequently our objectives and aims are diminished by our belief before they can even be worked on and materialized. This not only concerns the overcoming of physical maladies, it includes virtually everything in our lives. The world is full of people who have aimed low and thought small, who want to impose this diminutive thinking on any who will listen to them. The real danger is the act of giving up or setting standards of smallness for ourselves with low expectations. Listen carefully to Michelangelo, the man who is considered by many to be the greatest artist of all time. I recall personally standing in front of the statue of David in Florence and being transfixed. The size, the majesty, the spirit that seemed to jump right out of the marble was Michelangelo saying to all of us, "Aim high." When he was asked how he could create such a masterpiece, he responded that David was already in the marble. He simply had to chip away the excess to allow him to escape. High aim indeed. And speaking of high, take a look sometime at the Sistine Chapel, where Michelangelo painted the ceiling by lying on his back and working every day for 4 years between 1508 and 1512, a project that lesser artists would have considered to be impossible. Yet Michelangelo took it on, and many more, in a lifetime crammed full of high energy, high talent, and yes, high aim.